Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Well, just when you're out, they pull you back in. Ethan Skolnick here with Brady Hawk and Alex Toledo. You can follow me, Ethan J. Skolnick, into 5 Reasons Sports. We got Alex Toledo at Tropical Blanket. We got Brady Hawk at Brady Hawk 305. The Miami Heat. What is everybody laughing about? What did I do? What did I do? What did I am I on mute? Am I on mute?
It was me. I thought I muted it.
The professionalism is at a high level in the play-in. The Miami Heat win 109-90 in Chicago after losing to the Bulls 3 times this season. The Heat have ended the Bulls season for the 3rd straight year. So Miami will advance to play Atlanta on Friday night. That game is going to be 7 o'clock in Atlanta. It will be all Heat fans by the second quarter. If they win that game, then they would advance to play Cleveland on Sunday. We will get to the player of the game in a second, and we'll get into more detail on him, but let's just start with it. Tyler Herro tonight, 37 minutes, 38 points, 13 of 19 from the floor, 3 of 7 from 3, got to the line, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Andrew Wiggins, 20 field goal attempts tonight, had 20 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. I thought it was his best defensive game as a member of the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo in 36 minutes, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists. And off the bench, Davion Mitchell in 33 minutes, 5 of 5 from the floor, including making both of his threes, 15 points and 9 assists. The Miami Heat essentially closed this game, not that it really needed to be closed. They essentially closed this game with Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, and the Jimmy package. Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, and Kyle Anderson. That's where we are right now. Also, because Alex will get upset at me, I do want to mention Off the Floor. Link is right here in the description. The most heat anywhere, the most heat information, conversation, consternation, and a night like tonight's celebration. Get access to our 10 channels. Pay $2.99 per month. You can cancel at any time. Again, use the link in the description. I will get to some of your comments here. We are going live. It will go on the podcast feed afterwards. Just my general thought tonight, and then we'll get off of this, and then I want to get to the player of the game and get both of you guys in here. General thought tonight, I thought this would either be a Heat blowout or they lose a close game. I went with lose a close game on the pod with Brady because I thought that it would get to that. They never let it get to that tonight. They showed resilience. There were a couple times that third quarter was a little dicey, 17 points in the third after playing a near perfect first half. But they had guys who stepped up and made buckets when they had to. I thought certain players defensively played really well tonight. I mentioned Wiggins. And essentially, this is the formula. They're going to lean on Tyler Herro to score, and they're going to lean on their defense to keep things going and keep them in these games. And for a night, at least, it worked. Brady, what did you like most tonight? Then we'll get to the player of the game.
It was probably the fact that I talked about before this game, that the biggest thing is the fact they had to control pace. And I just thought they did that at a really good level. And it really wasn't the way you'd think. It wasn't that they just bogged the game down by getting to the line a ton, because they really didn't. It was more so just slowing the game down off of their shot making them play from inbounding the ball constantly and take the ball out of the basket. And Miami just did a really good job defensively. I'd say that's kind of the biggest thing. Yes, they had the peak of the 71-point first half, But in terms of the consistency of why they were able to hold on to this lead and win this game, it was the defense. It was the fact that they were able to start the game with Bam on Giddey and make that type of adjustment. It was the fact that they were able to guard one-on-one in this game compared to these past Bulls matchups where it was constant helping from that weak side. It was constant weak side passes, and it was constant open threes. They eliminated those open threes. They said, guys like Giddey across the board, you're going to have to beat us one-on-one. They made tough shots at times, but ultimately it's not going to work consistently over the course of a game. So that adjustment itself, I thought, was kind of one of the biggest things. They had a lot of guys step up on that end one-on-one. We're going to get to it a little bit later. I kind of mentioned when I was jumped on playback, I think one of the underrated X factors of this game was Kyle Anderson. I mean, at halftime, he had 0 shot attempts, 0 points. And I thought he was one of their best players and one of their best defenders in that first half. The way he was able to shut the water off on a lot of those types of switching onto bigger guys like Vucevic, cutting that off, the blocks, all of that stuff. I just thought he was really good in that area. So defensively, they were just everywhere. I mean, they cut the rotation down a decent bit. Ethan, I know we talked about one of our big keys was the fact they had to play Tyler and Bam more. I was getting a little scared there early in the fourth. I'm like, are they going to get Bam in the game here? I felt like the podcast was going to end the season tonight. We're going to be talking about why did Bam play in the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, but they were able to make a run, and that's a lot because of the player of the game, and it's Tyler here.
Yeah, we'll get to the player game right now. Just do want to mention, overall, you look at the Bulls' numbers tonight. We'll get to more of this in defending the house. 39% from the floor, well, just under 40%, 27% from three. And they made Kobe White and Josh Giddey inefficient enough. Kobe White was 5 of 20, and Josh Giddey was 9 of 21. He still had 25 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. But it felt like he was under control in this game. And the one other thing that really jumped out to me tonight, and I haven't looked at the rebounding breakdown, I felt like the Heat did a great job crashing their own boards, defensive boards. They did not give up extra shots, the long rebounds. They had guys attacking it. And I just thought that was a much better effort from them. They were cleaning stuff up defensively, and that helped out their offense, particularly in that second quarter.
Out-rebounded them by 7.
I rebounded by 7, and it seemed like more than that, but it just didn't seem like the Bulls got a big rebound. That was the thing. And to me, that was one of the things that hurt the Heat, even though they weren't a bad rebounding team this year. It's just that they gave up some big ones, particularly long ones. That didn't happen tonight. All right, let's get to the player of the night, and then we'll go to Alex on it.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
Well, it's an easy one tonight. 38 points, as I mentioned, shot better than 65% from the floor. Alex, he had a great game against Boston last year in the playoffs, but then he struggled in the others. And this season was about being available to start with. He led the team in games. He led the team in minutes. And he made an all-star team. He had about a 2-week bump in the road around the time of all-star, just before and just after. He came back from it. He scored 38 in a road situation. I know it's not the East Finals or anything like that. It's not the stage that Jimmy did this on. But I'll put it this way, and I said this on the podcast with Eternal. If Tyler didn't do this tonight, we'd hear about it. So credit where it's due. He did do it. He scored 38. He was efficient. There was the one kick-out play, which was a little bit controversial. There were a couple of other things here. But for the most part, decision-making was not a problem. The shooting was on point.
100%. This is a great game by Tyler. Normally, in another game where he doesn't score at this rate, you might call out the 4 assists to 7 turnovers. Not exactly the ratio that you want. You want that to be the other way around. But then when you look at like the scoring, right, and the way that he did it, it's very much a continuation and really like a crescendo kind of the growth that he's taken this season, where a lot of the scoring is coming not just from like high 3-point volume, which is where the season started off, right? But he's got into this next stage in his evolution that we've talked about, where he's been run off the line and he's still getting threes up, but the volume has come down a little bit. And what you've seen in turn is huge improvement in the non-3-point line area. And, like just in general, tonight he shot 10 of 12 from 2 and had, 10 free throw attempts? Did I see that? Yeah, 10 free throw attempts. Like, that is amazing, right? And I know it's the Bulls defense, which is not a good one whatsoever, and we saw that tonight. And, like, these are the type of teams that he can really go off against, where it's just not, you don't have, like, all types of awesome defenders like you do on some of these other Eastern Conference teams. So good for him. I thought he played an awesome game as a scorer and showed everybody on national TV, whoever watched this game, that, he has shown a whole lot of growth, man. Like, he is a different player and has turned his, like, the optimal part of the game, the 3-point shooting, the part that got him into this, this step in his career. It's all really come together in this game where, he absolutely killed them inside the arc and also made a lot of really tough threes. Like, he doesn't get easy threes and makes deep contested ones despite that. So, like, he showed you, again, assist turnover ratio is not awesome, but he showed you that playing as the guy that teams are worried about, he can be really effective.
I think the comment that came in here, Brady, on the turnovers was he had 7 turnovers, but they weren't loud turnovers. Like, I didn't feel like most of them were unforced or poor decision making. He's got to clean it up. I mean, obviously you want to be, but I remember a conversation I had with LeBron and Dwayne about this way back. And they talked about turnovers, and they said, if you're not getting some turnovers, you're not doing anything. And I know that, like, Jimmy was like the paragon of no turnovers. It was this tremendous stat with him about, having more steals than turnovers. And it's amazing that he was able to do that. But most high volume guys are not like that. And I don't have a problem with Tyler having some turnovers, as long as they're not the careless stuff, they're not the late stuff. And I felt that the game overall was clean. Now he's going to get a different challenge in the next game against Dyson Daniels. And obviously this is going to be a long... What's that? Go ahead.
So tonight, in the minutes that he played, they had a 120 offensive rating. Very, very good. When he wasn't on the floor, the 11 minutes he wasn't, 86 offensive rating. Okay.
I mean, essentially, Brady, that's what they are right now, right? I mean, they're relying on Tyler to provide offense, and they're going to clean up with the defense around him. That's the formula.
100%. I mean, they have the bodies now to put lineups around him to be good enough defensively. Like I was mentioning, I thought Wiggins was super good defensively in this game. I mentioned Kyle Anderson. Kalel was just kind of roaming around the rim. So they had different guys, obviously what Davion's doing. So they could make that work, but offensively has kind of been the question. But yeah, Tyler's kind of taken that. The turnover thing is funny because when I'm thinking back to his turnovers in this game, they weren't a lot of like Duncan had a cross-court pass that ended up going the other direction for like an open fast break. They had a couple of those. Tyler's was more so attacking, ball goes off his knee. It's more so the ones that go out of bounds because he's so overly aggressive that it's almost like, it's honestly more like a missed shot to me than a turnover. A lot of his turnovers today. It's like, but I like that. You need that in these type of games. You need your 1A offensive guy to be that aggressive player, especially with the way we've talked about the way they limited him from 3 and pushed him off the floor. He's just going to counter that with the fact that he's going to attack the middle of the floor and get those floaters and get all those shots going. And the playmaking stuff. I mean, it wasn't like loud assist playmaking, but every play down the floor, it felt like he was getting 2 feet in the paint. Like he was easily getting downhill and doing that stuff, isolation, off the catch, all that. So credit to him. He was just super efficient. And I thought more than anything, forget the bare numbers, I just thought he controlled the game really well. Like I thought he slowed the game down. He played at the right pace. They used up so much of the shot clock in the half court, and which is so key, like not taking early shots. He had end of the third quarter, he had to play exactly from the last Bulls game where he jumped the steal, goes out in the open court, and instead of taking the pull-up 3 this time around, he ended up going for a dunk. But it's like those type of things. Obviously, that's an easy decision to make after what happened last time. But he was just so under control and just controlled the pace in general. And getting to the free throw line 10 times helps as well.
Yeah, the free throw line thing, that's been my big issue, is in these play-in playoff games, the games with actual meaning, can he get to the line enough to stop the clock? You mentioned pace. It's funny. They did use a lot of the clock at times. I'll be curious what their pace number was on this game because they had, 71 points in the first half. It felt like they were playing the Bulls' pace, but they really weren't. That's the thing. They did manage to slow the game down at times. we'll talk more about Kyle Anderson as we go forward here. But let's get to the play of the night.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
All right, Alex, what you got?
So honestly, I thought the one that stood out to me.
And the volume is gone.
You hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. The Highsmith block from this game.
Yes.
Haywood
Yes.
with a sleeve. I don't know. There's something about it there.
Moving different.
As the kids say, you know, he's got more aura. I don't know if that's the right way of using it. Brady, you I'll have to confirm with you, but Haywood with the sleeve, that block, awesome play. There was many plays in this game that you could have thrown in there, but that one was just like fantastic. That was like the one that stood out to me the most, just because it's Haywood. You know, like Haywood doesn't get a lot of highlight plays. He just does his thing as a disciplined defender. You know, not necessarily going for not a guy who gambles in the passing lanes a whole lot, and a guy who, you know, gets out of position to go for a block. You know, so good for him. You know, transition is not necessarily his strong suit either. So
No.
I'll give another one. There was the play where Davion just like totally just like mucked up the whole play where he like jumped and just switched and then got around the screen with Kobe White, forced like almost a turnover. Kobe White like gathers it and takes a turnaround and he blocks it. And that was kind of like the energizer shift of the game. So like on the same length, it's just like their role players are really defending at a high level right now, and that helps in these games. Like they're gonna have it helps when you shoot 10 of 18 from 3 in the first half. Like, yes, that's always great, but the only way that they're going to win, like in this game in Atlanta coming up, or if they get to a Cleveland series, if they want to try to be competitive, it's doing that stuff defensively where there's not these lapses where you're just constantly getting attacked with 3 guys on the floor that can't defend. Like they're not in that state anymore. So that just helps in these type of games.
There was also that pass that Bam snuck in somehow into the paint. I have no idea how that one got there, and it ended up in a Mitchell 3 from the corner.
And also the commenter that pointed out that the Tyler pass in the fast break.
Yes.
That was
really good.
To you guys' point from before, like he's kind of, you know, become a little bit of a, you know, he's not a true point, obviously, but he's become a little bit of a floor general for them. You know, to Brady's point from earlier about like the assist to turnover ratio kind of not being, you know, indicative of a bad playmaking game or whatever.
He's been really good in transition situations there. I think as long as he doesn't pull, you know what I'm saying? Like if he's actually looking to do something in terms of creation there, that's you know, he's been good in that regard. But I just keep watching Davion, and I will do other pods on this. I don't understand how he was a bad offensive player somewhere else, because I watched this. He does all the things you want him to do. Like he understands his limitations, but the shot is clean. Like there's no wasted motion on his shot. This is not a shot they had to reconstruct completely. He gets a foot in the paint. He makes decent decisions when he gets in. There were twice tonight he got up in the air and they were turnovers, but for the most part, he makes good decisions in there. It's not just like they added a role player here. Like they added like a legitimate difference-making player. It's kind of crazy considering he wasn't even part of the trade in the first place, and how that played out. And then also you mentioned Kyle Anderson, Brady. Maybe I'll let you get to him in defending the house and some other things there because he was key. But again, to close tonight, and we talk about Tyler, and he was great, incredibly efficient. For those who are not really giving Bam and Wiggins credit, I thought that Bam and Wiggins being so aggressive offensively, particularly towards the rim early in the game, helps set things up for Tyler. I was okay with Wiggins' number of shot attempts tonight because the way he defended. I want him to be aggressive. And I thought Bam had an exceptional offensive first half. Just in the way he went about it. And defensively, I mean, for those who are complaining about Bam, they put him on Giddey. and they controlled Giddey. And I don't know how you could have much fault with him, honestly, or pretty much anybody else on the roster. I thought Duncan was choppy. Beyond that, I didn't have a problem with pretty much anybody else's.
Bam did his job.
Minutes. Yes. Let's get to defending the house.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
Brady, I know you wanted to get in on this. So do you want to talk a little about Kyle Anderson?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was kind of I mentioned earlier that he had 0 points and 0 shot attempts at halftime and played at that level. He had 0 points and 0 shot attempts at the end of the game. I didn't even realize that until now. It was still a plus 15. We had 2 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal and a block. But like I said, I thought he was just a pillar of a lot of their defensive sets. The fact that he's able to switch up and allow Bam to kind of guard the perimeter, he was closing a lot of that stuff off. But he's also, like, they call him slow-mo, but he's able to stay with these quicker guards. He's able to use his wingspan to his advantage. He's just so he's not jumpy. He stays down like on everything, and he's just able to contest really well. Like, he just did a really good job defensively. Miami in general, I thought was an interesting defensive game plan because either we talked about this game specifically was like less help. We talked about kind of the less help, guard one-on-one. I didn't know if they'd do Bam on Giddey out the gate. But one thing that was interesting was the fact that they've done this before where they just switch all over the place and they just kind of allow you to they just move pieces around. But the difference here was like they were going to switch all over the place and not help. Like they weren't going to give up a switch they didn't like and then send help and then it was going to lead to an open kick. They were just like, okay, if you get that switch, just go. Like this team is not talented enough. This isn't like one of these world-beating teams that have stars that are just going to kill you on switches. Just see what they can do. Just make them bog the game down, play isolation, play that game. Because when the Bulls start playing fast and the ball's moving in the half court and they do all that, that's when they're at their best. So I thought they took the Bulls out of their offensive game just from that alone. Like it wasn't even elite defense. It was just the fact that they just it was a coverage that they haven't seen really in the past 3 games. So that was just an interesting wrinkle. Heath, I think you said that this was one of the best Wiggins defensive games in a Heat uniform. I would agree. I thought this was one of his better ones just for the fact just the impact, the stuff he was doing on the boards, just it's so funny to me as well because he looks so skinny out there, but he's strong and he can really guard up. Like he's switching on these guys and he's getting position. He's doing all those things. So yeah, they're going to have to continue to do this type of stuff. And honestly, the game plan that we saw tonight, I think you keep it against Atlanta. I think that's what you'd want to do as well because Atlanta probably has a little bit more guys to help off of than Chicago actually. So it makes it a little bit easier, but I still think you kind of give up these type of switches because Miami has the pieces right now to do it. Yeah, you'd have to feel good about that game plan against Atlanta.
Ethan, can I add on something there?
Go ahead.
To Brady's point, like the Heat kind of going away from some of their traditional principles as far as being extremely aggressive and, not like sending a lot of help after the switch, kind of going away from that for this matchup, I thought made a lot of sense. And to Brady's point about Kyle and Davion and Wiggins, like all 3 of those guys just did a quick gander at the team's defensive rating with those 3 on the floor individually, and all 3 of them, it was like a 30-point defensive jump, right? In the sense that they're allowing 30 points less per 100 possessions. Like those 3 guys stood out there. Like like obviously those are the 3 additions, and those are the first things that we said after that trade was, well, you're going to get guys who are defensively very solid at the very least. Solid is kind of like an understatement because Mitchell is very good at what he does. Wiggins, I feel, hasn't been at this level every time on defense, but he's obviously a good defender. Anderson is a good defender in his own right. Like them kind of sticking to this identity, which by the way, they held the Bulls, which have been so offensively prolific over the past few weeks. They held them to a 93 offensive rating, which is I think like 4th percentile I saw. So they 100% did their job in slowing down this Bulls team that was just not necessarily an amazing half-court team, which, by the way, they did a lot better than the Bulls in the half-court, but not letting them go crazy and run all over you in transition, which is what was really bringing up kind of their offensive rating and all that. They were an absolutely elite transition team, not only on offense, but on defense. I was looking at that, and the Heat killed them in transition. They completely took them out of their game. And Gideon White, like you mentioned earlier, were just, rudderless.
Well, I think you look at the transition stuff. They got back, which they didn't in that last game against Chicago, but also, again, in the half court, they cleaned up the defensive rebounding. I thought that was key. I thought Ware had some good moments in this game. He picked up the 2 fouls early, which I don't think was the worst thing because it got Kyle Anderson in a little earlier. I said that at the time, and I thought having him on the court in those situations was big. Here's my overall thought. We're going to save a lot of this stuff on Atlanta for podcast tomorrow. But I understand that some Heat fans don't want them to win that game on Friday. I get it. Okay. I know that Heat fans are still split. Most didn't want them to win tonight, but there really were no repercussions to winning tonight other than getting to Friday. Like tonight.
Pick purgatory.
Yeah. Tonight did not affect the draft pick in any negative way. It's just that Friday could. And again, the Heat want to make the playoffs. The Heat know they're going to get a pick between 18 and 20 in this draft from Golden State. That's settled. We just don't know what's going to be 18, 19, or 20. They want to make the playoffs. They don't want to have those unprotected picks hanging over their heads in 26 and 28. Majority of Heat fans are probably still, when I poll this tomorrow, going to say that they don't want them to win on Friday. They want to get the other pick. That's where they want to go. But I think a few Heat fans might turn back the direction of actually trying to win the game now. And it's not because the Heat are going to beat Cleveland in the first round. I still don't believe that. But I do think you see some of the positives of trying to compete in these situations. And I think you get a game like this for Tyler. I think this could be a confidence boost for him. It was his show tonight. This wasn't Jimmy's show. This was his show in a play-in game. Kind of was last year, too, after Jimmy got hurt. Jaquez had a big game in that one. He didn't even play tonight other than 1 minute. But this was Tyler's show tonight, and he played at a very high level. You saw – but the other thing is I think from the front office's perspective, and again, I know everybody's going to be split on the Jimmy trade till the end of time. At least they got some functional pieces. I mean, they're literally closing. It's like, who are they going to surround Bam and Tyler with? They surrounded them with the 3 players they acquired for Jimmy Butler. And they still are sitting there with the 18th to 20th pick in the draft. So if they re-sign Davion, I think Anderson's going to be back next year on a cheap contract. And Wiggins, to me, if he plays like he did tonight, is a neutral contract. He's a neutral. If he's going to defend like that and provide some offense like he did tonight, even if he wasn't that efficient, I think that
make the
you'll
case
take
positive.
I would agree. I mean, I think when we look at where contracts are going to be in the new CBA, or as they go forward with the TV deals and all that,
and where they're at now, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's fine. And I think this comes in from some people. Sergio, as a Heat fan since 91, I always want them to win. Tom 3, quietly, I like this team in this mix. Again, I'm not going to argue this is a championship contender. They're not. But I like the resilience. I like the way that Ware played as a rookie in his first game of this magnitude. I like the way that Tyler played, obviously. And Davion Mitchell is a keeper, man. So we'll talk about more of this as we go forward the next couple of days. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on Playback. We'll have a full breakdown before Atlanta. It's the same story. They don't have Jalen Johnson. This is about stopping Trey. And typically when Spo has had to do that, they have. So we'll get into that tomorrow. All right, thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a good night, everybody. Heat advance till Friday, 7 o'clock against Atlanta. Playback, off the floor, post-game live. We'll have all of it.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.